In the purport, Prabhupada is explaining from the descriptions given by Jiva Goswami that actually the Vedic literatures describe two different boar incarnations of the Lord. One boar incarnation took place during the time of Swayambhuva Manu, which we are reading now. And another boar incarnation took place at the time of Chakshusha Manu, which is killing of demon Hiranyaksha. So, according to Jiva Goswami, actually these are two different incarnations of boar, which took place different millenniums altogether. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in order to make the description easy, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur suggests the sage Maitreya amalgamated both the boar incarnation in different devastation. Why did he do this? To summarize them in his description to Vidura. So first of all, let us try to understand that how these two incarnations are. They appeared in two different millennium. What is the logic behind when we say that Hiranyaksha, the Lord killing Hiranyaksha, did not appear in the time of Swayambhuva Manu? What is the logic? Color is okay. What did he say? Duration of life, not. What is the proper logic by which we can understand? Raghuttama? Yes. Actually, if you see, Swayambhuva Manu and his wife, they are still contemplating about procreating. Procreation from them has not yet begun. And Hiranyaksha, actually, whose son is Hiranyaksha? Kashyapa Muni and Diti. Right? So where Kashyapa Muni and Diti have not yet come into picture at all. They come later on, after Manu. From Chakshusha Manu, later on they come into picture. It is in that millennium that Kashyapa Muni and Diti, daughter of Daksha, from them Hiranyaksha was born. So that's why Srila Jiva Goswami very clearly suggests that actually this boar incarnation is different from the boar incarnation which took place in Chakshusha Manu's devastation time. This devastation is when all the lower planetary systems, they were submerged in water, and only these higher planets, Jana, Mahar and Satya, and only these inhabitants were able to see the boar incarnation of the Lord at that time. So, Maitreya Rishi, in order to summarize the pastimes of the Lord Varaha, he amalgamated them together and described them. That is what Prabhupada is explaining through these great acharyas. So, one question arises, why these kinds of proper chronology is not given in the Vedic literatures? Why there is no proper chronology as such in the Vedic literatures? Specifically we find in Bhagavatam and many other Puranas. Yes, very much. Because the most important principle is to understand about the pastimes of the Lord, about the truth of the Lord, about the truth of the living entity. The focus is not to establish some history. If the history has to be established, then just like we have today so many histories of different empires, Mughal Empire, history of British Empire, so many different histories are there. So then it will make bundles and bundles of books. What this king did, what that king did, what we have got to do and understand by reading all those kinds of histories. Whereas we will find in Bhagavatam, the most important is the glories of the Supreme Lord. In order to establish the glories of the Supreme Lord, whatever is required. Because Prabhupada says, examples are better than precepts. You see? That's why Bhagavatam is considered to be the ripened fruit of the Vedic tree. Nigamah kalpataror galitam phalam. The Vedas are compared to the desired trees, and the ripened fruit of this desired tree is this Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like if we try to see, first of all, Veda Vyas, he was planning and he divided the one Veda into 4 divisions. What was his idea? That people will be able to understand the Vedic knowledge more easily. So the one Veda he divided into 4 divisions. Then further Upanishads, and then finally he wrote Vedanta, giving the summary of all the Vedas. And we find, in spite of writing all of them, he was still dissatisfied. Why? Because actually the real important factor is not accomplished. So Narada explains to him, if you are not satisfied, you are the author, you are not satisfied, how do you expect your readers will be satisfied? Those who are going to read Vedas, those who are going to read this Upanishad, how do you expect them to be satisfied? You are not satisfied. And why you are not satisfied? Because you have only given indirect glories of the Lord. You have not directly glorified the Lord. Until and unless the soul directly glorifies the Lord, which is his constitutional position, Yayatma suprasidati, the soul will never become satisfied. See? So that's why Veda Vyasa, in spite of writing even Vedanta Sutra, he was not satisfied at all. Then Narada Muni urged him that you should write a commentary on Vedanta, which is the gist of the knowledge, by glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So while compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, Veda Vyasa, or in fact in that sense if you see, even Shukdev Goswami, when he is speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, to Parikshit Maharaj. And when Parikshit Maharaj was wondering about the effect of chanting the holy name of the Lord, Parikshit Maharaj had told about that how devotional service to the Lord is the most direct method. And in order to establish that, Shukdev Goswami quotes from history of Ajamila. Ajamila history had not happened just at that time. And Shukdev Goswami is saying, I am quoting from Itihasa, I am quoting from historical facts. You see? So, why? Because examples are better than precepts. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains this fact. When Krishna is saying in the end of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is giving his conclusion, Sarvadharman paritajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarve papebhyo mokshishyami ma sucha. Then people in Kali Yuga, they think this is too much of a demand. Give up everything, all other considerations, just surrender unto me alone. Isn't it? So people are not able to understand how to surrender practically. So, in order to establish that fact, Prabhupada says, Bhagavatam is filled with examples of great personalities, of great devotees, how practically they surrender to the Lord, giving up all other considerations. So examples of Pandavas are there, examples of Prahlad is there, example of Dhruva Maharaj is there. So, with those examples, the fundamentals that we have to surrender to the Lord, how we have to practice devotional service, how when there are problems in our spiritual life, how we have to overcome those problems. All these different aspects of, practical aspects of devotional service are very clearly established in Bhagavatam. There are examples of devotees who practice devotional service from the womb of their mother. There are examples of devotees who practice devotional service at the age of 5. There are examples of devotional service practiced so seriously by devotees that they were able to attain perfection in one shana. There are examples of devotees like Parikshit Maharaj who were able to get perfection of their life in just 7 days. There are examples of devotees who were born in maid servant's house, where it is very difficult to become Krishna conscious. But how Narada was able to become such a great devotee of the Lord, even though he was born as a maid servant's son. There are examples of devotees who were born in demoniac family and with so much resistance, so much problems given to them. Still they were able to become great devotees. And just like in one of the class we were hearing of Prabhupada, Prabhupada gave the example that how spiritual life we have to be very cautious. What is the example Prabhupada gave? Bharat Maharaj had to take 3 lives to make his life perfect. So even such examples are given, that how we have to be very cautious when we are walking on spiritual life. It is like a sharp razor's edge. So even such examples are given, that if we are not cautious, we will also fall down. We will also lose this human form of life, at least temporarily. So Bharat Maharaj example is given. So Bhagavatam is filled with wonderful, practical, aspects of devotional life. Every walk of our life, how we have to practice devotional service, we can take the example from these great devotees which are mentioned in Bhagavatam. There were wonderful prayers offered. In one of the classes we were discussing that how we have to offer prayers. So Bhagavatam is also filled with those kinds of beautiful prayers offered by great devotees. Isn't it? So, examples are better than precepts. That we find even when Shukdev Goswami is explaining to Maharaj Parikshit about the glories of devotional service, about the glories of chanting the holy name of the Lord. He gives the example of Ajamila. He starts, once upon a time in the city of Kanyakubja, there was a Brahmana by name Ajamila. You see, he is quoting a historical fact. And that history has nothing to do with chronology there. He is not quoting. He is only saying once upon a time. He is not giving the exact time when it was. Because all that is not very important. Details of all those subsidiary things, they are not important. Most important is Saram. Bhagavatam is a Saram. You see? Vedas are all details. What is the use of reading all those details when you are not able to understand the Saram? You are reading all the Vedas, everything, and you have not come even to the conclusion that actually by reading all the Vedas, Krishna is to be known. Vedavit chaham, Vedanta krit. If you don't even know that actually the real compiler of the Veda is Krishna, from all the Vedas, Krishna is to be known, and we are going through reading all the details of the Vedas, what is the use of reading the details of those Vedas? So similarly, we should understand that actually why Maitreya Rishi is amalgamating these two more incarnations and presenting together is because subject matter concerned is important. Chronology is not given so much importance in Bhagavatam. That is what we should understand. Prabhupada says, Prabhupada gives the example that the lives of great personalities like Maharaj Parikshit is so important that every walk of his life is described in Bhagavatam. His childhood is described, how Parikshit Maharaj used to play in his childhood. Even his kingdom is described, how chivalrous king he was. And Prabhupada says, not only that, even his death is described. See? Why we have to read a death of a man? Man is dying, somebody is dying, how did he die? What happened at his death? We are not interested in all those things. But even death of Maharaj Parikshit is so important. Because from all the walks of their life of the great devotees, important lessons have to be learned. What is the lesson we can learn from the life of Parikshit Maharaj? What is the lesson we can learn from the death of Parikshit Maharaj? Even that is very important. What is the lesson we can learn from death of Maharaj Parikshit? Yes. Because the most important, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, is when we leave this world, the consciousness at the time of death, that is what defines our next life. Without fail, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram. Without fail, we are going to get that kind of consciousness. So how Maharaj Parikshit he maintained Krishna consciousness even at the hour of leaving his body. How did he maintain it? By having the association of great personalities, by hearing constantly with rapt attention Bhagavat Katha. He maintained that consciousness and he said, I am completely fearless now. Let the death come immediately, I don't mind. You see? So, how he was able to attain that perfection of life even at the point of death. So, all those things, all these lessons are very important for all of us. So, Bhagavatam is describing the history of these great personalities. From Pandavas and say before Lord Krishna and between Pandavas, many kings would have gone. Not that, you see, he was the emperor, but along with him there were many other kings. All those kings are not described in Bhagavatam. We don't find description of so many different kings. Maybe sometimes some names are mentioned. Their lives are not described. What did they do? How did they eat? How did they sleep? All these things are not described. Isn't it? Because Bhagavatam is concerned with Saram. That is what we have to understand. Krishna consciousness is concerned with the most essential element, not concerned with the details, which is unconnected to Krishna, which is not connected to devotional service. They are all sidelined, they are all avoided. And Prabhupada says, this is one of the reasons that sometimes historians, they criticize that chronology is not there. You are citing history of Rama, you are citing history of Bharat Maharaj, you are citing history of Pandavas. But where is the chronology? When they appeared, how they appeared, and what happened after that, which king appeared after that. Because Bhagavatam is not concerned with all those things. Prabhupada translates Puranam means historical, spiritually important facts. Prabhupada doesn't say Puranam means only historical facts. Historically important facts is called Puranam. It is not this ordinary history, ordinary itihasa. So many names which we don't even remember. Muhammad Ghaznavi and Hyder Ali and Tughlaq Bean and this Bean. What is the use of reading all those kinds of histories? Isn't it? Sensual kings, how they enjoyed their life. What is the use of reading all those things? Already our mind is filled with so much of rubbish. And then we have to read all this history of these rubbish kings. What are we going to attain by that? So Bhagavatam deals with essence. It deals with Saram. That is what we have to understand. So there are some interesting quotes about how Prabhupada says that what is Bhagavatam about? Prabhupada says that sometimes these incidents are taken not from this planet. Sometimes the incidents are cited from some other planet. That pastime would have happened in some other planet, in some other yuga, but still those examples are cited because of importance of its spiritual values, not importance of its chronology. So Prabhupada says, incident mentioned in Vedic literature such as Puranas, Mahabharata and Ramayana are factual historical narrations that took place sometimes in the past, although not in any chronological order. But they are historical facts, they are not some imaginative stories. Sometimes imaginative stories are also given, but they are clearly mentioned as stories. You see, they are not mentioned. Just like Puranjana, that is not a historical fact. Story of Puranjana. That is a story described, allegory described in order to establish some important fact. That is very clearly mentioned in Bhagavatam. That is, it's just an allegory, just to make us to understand. Whereas, these are all historical facts. Examples of Ajamila, that's a historical fact. So Prabhupada is saying, such historical facts, being instructive for ordinary men, were assorted without chronological reference. They're all assorted. Some would have happened millions of years back, some would have happened just now. According to the importance of their spiritual values, they are assorted and given together. It is like that. So we should know. Sometimes when people may say, you don't find, that kind of chronology, what we have mentioned in our historical books. Actually, what is their history? Beyond 3000 years back, they also have no history as such, which they are so much proud about. Isn't it? So, then Prabhupada is saying, besides that, they happen on different planets, nay, in different universes. So, not just in different planets. Sometimes some incident would have happened in Satyaloka, that may be mentioned here. Not only that, some incident would have occurred in some other universe, it may be mentioned in Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is not just historical facts of this planet, this universe. It may contain the history of some other universe also. And thus, description of narration is sometimes measured by 3 dimensions. You see, this is also very important to understand. Because we are talking about Jambu Dvipa, we are talking about so many Dvipas, which all those Dvipas are not visible to us. Isn't it? Because we are not able to see those dimensions with these kinds of eyes. Just like certain things we cannot see with these naked eyes. We require some other instrument. We require microscope to see smaller things. So to see higher dimensions, it is not possible to see with these eyes. So therefore we require Shastra Chakshusha. Those things which we cannot see directly with our eyes, better to see them with Shastras and go by that. Because they are all given by experienced, realized personalities. That is understanding. So we are simply concerned with instructive lessons of such incident, even though they are not in order by our limited range of understanding. What should we be concerned with? Not with chronology. We should be concerned only with the instructive lessons they impart. So we should not similarly think why Maitre Rishi is amalgamating one incarnation of boar happened somewhere else, and now this incarnation he is putting them together, looks like he is little less intelligent. No, that is not the idea. He does not know how to describe properly, no. He is describing what is best about that instructions to be gained from this boar incarnation, that boar incarnation, and together he has put them on the face value of spiritual instructions. So this is what we can understand. And otherwise, Prabhupada says, as Rupa Goswami has said, that Puranas, which contains these histories, are as good as Vedic literature. There is no difference. He says, bhakti should not be practiced thinking only about Vedic literature or the Vedas. It has to be established even by the Puranas. So Rupa Goswami says, Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Pancharatrikim vidhim vina, ekantika harer bhakti utpateva kalpate. Anyone who is practicing bhakti without reference to Shruti, Shruti means all these Vedas, the 4 Vedas, Upanishads, they are all called as Shrutis. Smriti, Purana, and all others. Pancharatrikim vidhim vina, and the Pancharatriki vidhim given by Narad Muni. All these things, if one doesn't practice bhakti by making reference to all these Vedic literatures, he is actually only practicing disturbance in the society. So we'll stop with this. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki.